Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective podcast. As always, joined here with your host, Sean Tasse, myself, and illustrious co-host, Kyle Miller. Kyle, what's going on?
Oh, living the dream as usual. Here in this beautiful May weather in March.
Right? You getting ready to dominate at Super Mario Kart tonight?
Yeah, 100%. My 10-year-old daughter doesn't stand a chance. She's getting life lessons when we do that. Life lessons.
Yeah.
Do you let your kids win? No, dude. No.
Never. And they cry. And why can't I win? I always want to win. Then
the thing is, because I have the 10-year-old who I can beat consistently, but I have a 21-year-old who also has handed me my own ass in Mario Kart. So I'm like, I get it. Like I feel both success and the defeat. Yeah.
Hey, you've got a window where you can be the winningest winner of all.
Yeah, and then eventually I'm just gonna retire. I'm like, no, I'm never touching Mario Kart again. It's over. There was a Simpsons episode like that where Homer was training to beat Bart at like whatever boxing, and then Marge pulled the power cord just as Homer was winning, and Bart's like, I'm gonna retire.
Undefeated.
Yeah, undefeated.
Nice. As always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who you think might like this kind of content. You can book an appointment with Kyle or I in the calendar links below. You can download the buyer or seller guides in the calendar links below. If you're watching on Apple, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for your eyes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you for your ears. And we'll have a great little sponsor for the show that we'll talk about at the halfway point. New sponsor, new biz, new venture. We'll get into it, but we wanted to talk a little bit today about a couple things, actually. In the first half, we want to talk about the government just released that they are holding the rate steady. First-time homebuyer canceled, so a few financial pieces there. And in the second half, talk about property taxes and what might be coming down the pipe in terms of changes to tax, as well as some predatory lending stuff that's in the news in terms of promissory notes and stuff. So an action-packed show today with some pretty hot takes. We'll see what lands and what goes. But Kyle, why don't you kick us off and talk about the rate being held on, was it March the 6th? That's when they had their rate out. Pretty exciting news there.
Yeah, because nobody cares. Pretty much that's the way. That's the end of the announcement. They held the overnight rate. Nobody cares. Let's move on. Everybody has already checked out to like, when are they going to start dropping the prime rate, the overnight rate? Is it June? Is it July? That's what all the paperwork is saying. So we'll see how that goes. What's interesting, and it's what I've said before, right? It's the lead up to these announcements, and then after, that's when things happen. Like, I mean, and when you say after, well, obviously something happens after, Kyle. Well, no, the after is again now the lead up to the next one. So we saw that the bond market had been a little volatile, and then it started to drop before the announcement. They held the rate, and it literally, like, we could probably get a graph where it just goes and like a cliff just goes blah, and drops, which means that the anticipation is that fixed interest rates will keep coming down over the next little bit. It'll be a grind. It's not going to just be like, 3%. That's not happening. So get that out of your head. But we should see interest rates drop because it's speculative, right? It's the people in the bond market, the stock people in the market who are like, oh, I think this is going to happen. And that's what's driving that change. So that's the market telling us where they think the BOC is going to do. So looks like things are going to start to grind down slowly, but that's fixed. That's not on the overnight rate just yet.
So I wonder if you want to do some speculation, you'd say, hey, the fixed rate is speculative. Do you think that we're going to get, so to speculate with me here, do you think that by the end of this year, the end of 2024, we're going to see a rate that's in the low fours, like 4.25 by the end of this year? 4.25, 4.35, 4.15, something like that?
I don't know. Quite honestly, like, it's a lot of it's voodoo and feelings. So it really depends on it. There's just so many factors out there. right? It depends on what happens in the US. I think what's going to be wild is to see how everything gets affected once the official nominations of the US presidential race come out. Like if it's officially going to be Trump and Biden, I mean, it's unofficial right now as far as I've heard, but when it goes official, that's going to change. That's going to change U.S. economy outlooks. That's going to change world outlooks. And then when it's official in November, when they actually do their vote, then that'll change things again. So it's tough to say where it's going to go and how things are going to react. And the speculators can speculate, and we're all along for the ride.
Right. I guess my point is I'd be happy for that if the rates come down. I think that's what everybody's hoping for. But you've made a point in the past that says, hey, look, if the rates come down, it's because there's individual people, like people, your neighbors, your friends, the people you know who are hurting, who are, suffering as a result, and the rates have to come down because, there's something about it that's broken. So,
And that's the thing. And the other thing too is it's so important to do the math. Like I know 4.54 looks better than 4.84.
Yes.
But until you do the math, like, yeah, literally, I know it looks better. But have you done the math to see what that actually is? I was doing numbers for a client this morning, and we were 30, and I was showing them a range for whatever reason. But I'm like, here's 499, here's 539, right? It's a 35 or 534. It's a 35 basis point swing.
Right.
And it was, the difference is $60. Like $60. That's the difference. So when people are like, it's going to be thousands of dollars different, it is not, right? Yes, long-term interest, I get it. Yes. But when you're looking on the day-to-day, $60 a month.
I was going to ask bi-weekly or a month?
No, a month in that case,
okay.
Right? Like you really have to wrap your head around the fact that you're tied to your feelings and not the math. Look at the math. I'm not saying waste $60. If you can get that number, get that number. But are you going to wait 6 months to buy that house just to get 454? Because that's going to make all the difference. If you think so, I'll fight you, but you're probably wrong. You're probably wrong. So be careful.
Watch out.
Yeah, be careful.
Take off your own helmet.
No fight straps. Let's go.
That's right. All right, well, that's interesting. That's a good tidbit that I did not know about. That 35 basis points is only worth $60. What's the price point of that property?
Yeah, now again, still relative, right? That was a $310,000 mortgage, but it was also 20-year amortization. So there's so many little details that need to be worked out. Other than if I get the lowest rate, it's just going to be great. It's like, no, yes, but no, it's not that different, right?
Yeah, and again, what's posted or what the government posts when they do these rate announcements, most people, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe most people are doing fixed rate. They're not going for variable anyways, right? Like 75% of the people, I'm assuming, are doing fixed rate mortgages, not variable rate mortgages.
Yeah, and that's that. And then yes, currently for sure. At the same point, there was an article posted the other day that said the variable rate mortgage could be a massive turning point in the next year or so, because of how fast the BOC could start to drop things, which means you can ride that wave down. You're going to start high and end low, and then there's advantages to that product for sure. I still am in a variable and live by it, and I'm okay with it. Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? It's still that misnomer, and I've called realtors out before, and I've said it on here before. The Bank of Canada did not move the rates. It's not plural. One. It's one rate that if you're fixed has nothing to do with you at all. But it does make the market shift and move. Yeah. So it's a great indicator. It's a great I don't even know what you want to call it. but it will definitely help you see where things, like, their non-movement causes a reaction. Watch that reaction. That's the point.
I was speaking with a client yesterday, and I guess they had seen Benjamin Tall speak and say, "Here's what we expect to happen over the next little while." And he said that his thought was that the overnight rate would drop by 125 basis points over the next 18 months. And so, if that's the case, and you're in a variable rate, and like you say, you get to ride that wave down. You know, the people who are in variable and rode the wave up, like it really hurt during COVID. Like that's the highest and fastest overnight rate increase that we've seen in history, from what I understand, right?
Yeah.
And so will it come back down to 2%? No, 2% was fake money. That's like when you go to a car dealer and you're like, hey, give me the 0% interest. Well, you're just paying more for the vehicle, right? So it's like it all ties in together, because in Ottawa we're all very monthly payment focused. But if there's a way that you can game it, maybe if you didn't do variable before and you do variable now, then maybe you do get to go on that roller coaster on the downswing. So who knows? It's like I say, it's voodoo and feelings.
See, and again, but that's the mindset stuff that people need to understand. When Ben Tall says, because I've seen him speak a bunch of times, he's great.
Yeah.
But when he says, I think the Bank of Canada is going to drop the overnight rate, like, 1.25%. Okay, great. That does not mean fixed rates. It does not.
Yeah.
Will fixed rates drop 1.25% too? No, not necessarily. I shouldn't say no, not necessarily. So, not to mention, when you're in a fixed up here, and you're like, I can't wait till fixed gets down here. As fixed rates drop, your penalty will increase. Your penalty will increase. And for the people who definitely love the banks, as in the big six, you probably don't even know that the rate you have is actually, like, the way they calculate the penalties, the rate they're going to use is a good percent to percentage and a half higher than what you're actually paying today. So your payment, your penalty will go exponentially bigger, just in case you didn't know that. And you probably don't, because they don't tell you that.
I didn't know. Okay. And then the other piece.
Sorry.
The other piece I wanted to know, or that we wanted to talk about, was the first-time buyer, not collateral. What was the word? Equity. First-time buyer equity position that the government had hosted is canceled. That was the other big thing. Oh, hey, the government doesn't want to help people buy first-time houses anymore. It's doom and gloom sort of news article. But in reality, again, it's kind of like who fucking cares?
Who cares?
Right.
Because nobody used it.
Right.
Nobody used it. There was I think there was a total of 10,000 the quote I saw, or the statistic I saw, 10,000 applications. 2,000 of them were in Alberta alone. So 20% were in Alberta. I don't know how many of those actually got funded. Again, because nobody cared. Because it was such a misguided tool to use, because it was, again, it's like these people went to lunch and were like, we need to figure some shit out in the next 25 minutes to put out, because we got to look like we're doing something, right? There was no math done on it in terms of, like, income to location and what this could actually help with. There was, it was a max of $120,000 household income, which, quite honestly, is, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in the market. You couldn't have a mortgage or a purchase price, one of the two. Like, that's how much I studied it. More than four times your income. What were you buying in 2021 at $480,000? Like, that's a nice box.
Yeah.
So it made no sense there.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, it was misused, it was misguided. Nobody cares that it's gone. And the other thing too is that they were patting themselves in the back, like, look how great this was. This program has been around for years. It just wasn't done on the national level, on the provincial level, and even more at your regional municipality level. They still have it in some places, specifically in some of the rural communities, where the local government will literally give you 5% for your down payment. You show up with job, credit, and a little bit of money for closing, they'll give you the 5%. It's considered borrowed down payment, no charge. They register a lien. As long as you live there for 20 years, they will never have you pay it back. If you bail early, potentially even refinance, I'd have to look at the rules again. Haven't done one in a long, long time. They tell you to pay it off. And that's that. Like, it's been around, it's been done. And they're just like, look at us. Look at you. You screwed up something that was really easy to do. Congratulations. Sorry, got mad there.
It was my understanding that the federal program was, hey, if you buy it for 4 and you sell it for 8, you borrowed, let's say, just call it 10%. We borrowed 10%, so you borrowed 40 grand from us. When you sell for 8, you owe us 80. That was my understanding of how that federal program worked.
You paid back the money you borrowed, and then you paid back the same percentage of the equity growth.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that works out. So if you borrowed 40, you pay back the 40, and then you'd pay 10% on the $400,000 growth. Right. So 40. Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever you borrow, you pay them back. And so I think a lot of people are like, no, I'll borrow 40, but if I'm going to pay you back money, I'll pay you back what I borrowed plus interest. But I don't want the government to make money on my house, right? So I think a lot of people were like, I'm not doing that. So
well, it's interesting because it kind of ties into an overarching thought of the fact that, if we get on a government roll here for a sec, that they're pandering. Like, they don't want to fix this.
Right.
Because why would they give us money and then make sure and then put things in place to have house values drop?
Right.
Because that's like the only way it becomes more affordable is if house prices drop. So they're going to give us money to help us buy houses at elevated prices and then put something in place to completely go against what they just did and drop house values.
Yeah.
Like that. So that's why I'm like, it was doomed from the get-go. It was going to help a small minutia of people. No offense to those people. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. But overall, fuck all. Like,
let's take off our tinfoil hats for the second half.
Sorry.
Break. I'm messing with that. Take a quick break. Hear a word from our illustrious sponsors, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. This episode of the Real Collective Podcast is brought to you by Real Collective Marketing, the marketing agency that specializes in the unique needs and budgets of small to medium-sized businesses. We provide turnkey marketing solutions that get results. We become an extension of your team and act as your virtual marketing department, designing and implementing cost-effective strategies that will help grow your business. You can find out more today at www.realcollectivemarketing.ca. Now, here's your hosts, Sean and Kyle. Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective Podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our illustrious sponsor, Real Collective Marketing. Yes, it is a little bit incestuous. Is that the right word? I don't know. All good. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone you think might like this kind of conversation, book an appointment with Kyle or I in the calendar links below. And you can also download the buyer or seller guides there as well. In the second half, we're going to talk about something that nobody's talking about that I think is going to really hit in the next little while, and that is your property taxes, as well as something we just saw in the news come through about promissory notes and how some predatory lenders were burying, investors and borrowers, as well as private lenders, and what to watch out for with that. So I'll just jump into the taxes bit, I guess, first, before we talk.
Yeah, go for that, because that was a big conversation we had about that. Yeah, do that.
So so
go.
Property. Yes, going. Property taxes are about to get reassessed, and so the way that property taxes are assessed is using MPAC, the Municipal Property Assessment Calculator. And they go in and they say, here's how much I think your house is worth. And every house was assessed last in 2016. It was supposed to be reassessed in 2020, but we had a global pandemic that slowed everything down, didn't happen. And at the same time, the value of your property today versus the value of your property in 2016 is significantly different. Let's just say, for example, your house was worth $400,000 in 2016, and today it's worth $800,000. They go through, they do the assessment. MPAC says, yep, you know what? You were worth $400,000 then. Now you're worth $800,000. It's not like your property tax is going to double. You were paying $4,000 for the last 8 years for your property tax, or give or take. Awesome. That's great. Now it's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and pay $8,000. They will phase it in. What they've always done in the past is they'll phase it in. So if they keep the mill rate the same, then in 2025 you'll pay $5,000. In 2026 you'll pay $6,000. 2027 you'll pay $7,000. 2028 you'll pay your $8,000. So it's a slow ramp up, a 4-year ramp up that they normally do. But tax is not just charged based on the value of your home. It has a multiplier. And the reason people say, oh, well, it's about 1% of the price of the home, it is about that. But the city of Ottawa every year will determine what their expenses are, and they will figure out what the mill rate is. So the calculation of the taxes are based on the mill rate, and the mill rate is based on the expenses for the city, or the expected expenses. And they say, hey, based on our expected expenses, we have this much in houses. Here's how much we need to spend to do X, Y, and Z. Plow the streets, pick up your garbage, all the stuff that the city does. And we determine that we need to charge you 1% of the value of your home, right? Or whatever, right? It's like 1.01%, right? Last time I looked, or like 1.1%. Like it's a number around 1, or like 1.064. You know what I mean? Like it's a silly number, but it's done based on a mathematical equation, right?
Because they use that to establish the same thing for to establish that for new builds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we'll typically use 1% of the value when we're trying to do a deal for a new build. We use about 1% of the value. Some of the lenders will let us do that. Some will say, hey, we're going to use the mill rate, which sucks. But because it seems higher than that, though. You said 1.1. I feel like it's higher than that. I have to check that out. But
it's not.
That's gonna suck.
Yeah, it is.
That's gonna suck.
If you want to get that tinfoil hat back out, I don't think that the city needs to charge if the value of our properties go up. It's not. Let's say they double. It's not like the city's expenses double, right? So they'll have to reestablish a mill rate that's at a lower rate, and it could be the case that we are still paying individually the same taxes that they were, because if the city is governed well, then they're going to say, hey, look, our expenses are our expenses. We're going to drop down the mill rate as the increase in as MPAC increases the property values, so that the general taxpayer continues to pay the same amount. That would be like ideal. Whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. I'm not in that government.
Like when you run at a deficit, how are you not going to take advantage of that? And it's one of those things where, as much as we hope they look out for us and say, hey, like, we know things are more expensive, we know the mortgage rates have gone up and rah, right? They keep squeezing, and you can't end up. The other things, you can't run away from your property taxes. You can re-amortize your mortgage. You can extend get your payment down, right? You can do that. You can't run from your taxes. Yeah. Those are gonna be there.
Yeah, and you get nothing. No question about it. You can't, like you say, you can't re-amortize your taxes. You can't argue either. Oh, actually, that's not true. You can argue your taxes, right? If they go and the MPAC says, hey, I assess your home, you bought it for 4 and now it's worth 8. You can go back and argue with them and say, well, it's not 8, it's actually worth 7, and here's why. Cool, but it's not like you're going to argue it back to 4.
And where does MPAC send an appraiser? No.
Yeah.
This is a literal appraiser is going to go into every single person's house.
Theoretically, yes, unless they use an online system called the AVM, right? But theoretically, they should be sending an appraiser into every house.
Oh my God, I've never even really paid attention to that. I'm like, wow.
Well, have you ever had an appraiser? Did you have back in 2016 when they did the assessment for the properties? Did you have an appraiser come into your house? No. Right. So they don't, unless there's something major that's changed in your house, I think. But for the most part, they will here's what I think it's worth. Right?
Like why we don't tell people we renovate basements.
Oh, you know what?
Don't pull a permit.
But if you've
I'm
told
not suggesting that.
if you've told the city, hey, I'm doing work on my property, then they're going to say, okay, good. Well, you did work on your property. I did a bunch of work on mine, and I had a guy from the city come in, an appraiser from the city come in and say, yeah, okay, good. You put an SDU in the basement. Here's what your SDU passes. So all of that, all the work I've done on my house has been recorded by the city. So do those two entities talk to each other? I don't know, beyond my pay grade. But all I know is that property values will likely go up. And if you're buying a house in the next, I'd say, 1, 2, 3 years, definitely consider that as you're moving forward. What the property taxes are right now are maybe totally different from what they will be down the line. So
that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that rolls out for sure. For sure.
So yeah, keep your eyes peeled and keep that in mind when you're buying a property. Then lastly, we wanted to talk about this this article I found in the news about what they call predatory lending, and a particular group called the Winrose Group Lions Share Lending. There was apparently a child actor, a guy from YTV. Who cares that he was a child actor? This guy was turned into a real estate investor, went and bought 400 and something properties in like a remote town in northern Ontario, and borrowed a bunch of money from this particular lending syndicate. And what they would do is they would say, like, the broker, like you, not you, Kyle, but a person like you in your role says, hey, I've opened up this brokerage and I'm going to take promissory notes from private investors, and I'm going to agree to lend that money out to investors. And those lenders are guaranteed a 15 to 20% return. And they would get the promissory notes, and then they would lend it out to whoever needed money. Hey, you need money? Here's some money. Hey, you need money? Here's some money. Will they tie that to a property? No. Will they ask what you're doing with the money? No. They would just say, here you go. Here's some money. You can have it. And that's how they built up this whole house of cards. And so what happened now is there's millions of dollars out, like 50, 60, 140 million, I don't know what the number is, but crazy amounts of numbers lent out on promissory notes to to people who won't be able to pay it back. So these lenders, these private lenders on promissory notes, are all out this money. These small, some of these guys are big time investors, and they're going to have to go through and file bankruptcy or protection or whatever. But also there's some people who are like little guys who are just trying to make it work, and they're going to have to go to creditor protection. There's guys who are doing everything they can, scraping together, trying to flip a house so they can live the American dream and just make enough money to get out of the hole. I'm not even kidding. Who are like, 50, 60, 100, 150 grand into it, and just, poorly managed projects. And hey, good, there's free money. I'll take the free money. Yeah, sure, give it to me, because I got nothing. I don't have a car anymore. I've got nothing. I tried to flip a house. I lost a lot of money because the market was crap when it was time for me to sell it, and I'm stuck holding the bag. And now I've got to, I've got no equity in my house. I don't have a car. I tried to do this flip. I'm stuck with a flip. I've got a house with no equity in it, another flip house with no equity in it. I'm going to be losing $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. I guess I need to go and talk to a creditor and do, protection or set something up. And there's these guys on one side who are like the borrowers, and then there's the lenders on the other side who's like, well, I had $4 million and I lent out $1 million to this group, and now I only have $3 million. I don't expect to see that $1 million back, but I'm on vacation in Europe right now, so I can't really be available for comment. So it's like there's two totally different groups, and these guys are doing everything they can to get up out of the spot that they're in, and it's just, yeah, it. And who laughs, who comes away at the very end of it laughing, like Roseanne with all the chips, it's the lender, because they've got these big time fees. And, oh, you missed a payment, give me $250. Oh, you missed a payment this week, give me $250. Oh, you missed a payment this week, give me $500. And then it's like, oh, there's the fees all rake up, and it's all stuck to the guy at the bottom who's trying desperately to climb out of that hole.
Yeah, it's the thing. So we just went through, we as brokers, mortgage agents just went through a relicensing program where it's lending like that has restructured how we get our licenses literally in the last year. And now, like our full new relicensing puts us at a advertised level 1 or level 2. So any mortgage person who's advertising, right, publicly,
Yeah.
has to let you know if they are level 1 or level 2. And a level 2, just a level 1, a level 2, or an actual broker. So as much as we throw broker around, I cannot put myself out there as a broker. I am a mortgage agent because of my license. I'm a level 2, which means I can deal in privates, I can deal in alternative lending, I can do it all. But someone who's level 1 can't. And anybody that shows up to you and says, "Hey, have I got a deal for you?" Right? You like you want to ask. You want to ask. Even let's even take it away from private. If you've got someone, you're working with a mortgage person, and they tell you that you're level 1, right? That means they've got one stream to put you in, which is the A lending space. Yes, we all want to be there, but if something goes sideways, they can't even help you fix it,
Right?
Because they can't get you private legally. Someone else in their organization might be able to, but they can't. So now they're handing you off to somebody else. So, and anytime, and that was the entire new course, was just how we prevent like private lending issues, because all that stuff, all those fees and everything, none of that,
Right.
everything has to be put out front. If you don't see that written, you are in a bad position as an investor, as a borrower. Like, I know we get desperate, but that's just, I feel bad for everybody involved there, because everybody got tied up in emotion and didn't slow down and look, because there's no way, like, there's so much paper that gets involved in that stuff. It's
It's no, it's bad. And like you said, man, the numbers don't lie, right? So it's yeah. If you're thinking about investing, it's okay to look at all of your options. It's okay to look at private mortgages, but just make sure that you're doing it right. You know, that's it.
Private mortgages are great. They have a place. Investing in private mortgages is great, but there's very well run local mortgage investment corporations that can, you can set it and forget it, and they'll pump it through your RSPs. Like, it's actually very safe, and the risk is spread out amongst everybody. So we can do a whole thing on that about how this stuff works. But when an individual rolls up and then just says a promissory note, because if you're doing a promissory note, you're trying to you're going around the rules.
Yeah.
That's your first thing. You're going around the rules. If you're cool with that, I have no problem with it, right? For you as an individual, go for it. I speed. I know what I'm risking, right? But you can't be upset when the rules don't come back around to protect you.
Right. Yeah. I speed, and I know that I'm going to get there faster, but at the same time, I might also get a ticket, and it might not even gives me a ticket. It might be a stupid camera that gives me a ticket. That's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
But
guilty.
Who am I? Right. Send the money. Who am I going to be mad at? Me. Right. So listen. Yeah, it's this is a good one. There's an action-packed show today. So hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who you think might like this kind of information. You can either book an appointment with Kyle or I directly below. And if you'd like, I am a broker, a real estate broker.
Real estate. Yeah.
My broker's license. It is a different license to have, so it's it really doesn't matter. A little bit. No, anyways. You can also download the buyer or seller guide down below. Yeah, here we go. And yeah, I guess all of that good stuff. And until next time, keep it real.
Collective.